How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have the Buried Heart back with us again, and he can say his name and what he does in the band.
Yo, it's good to be back. My name's Jack Whittick, and I'm kind of like the all-around dude for the Buried Heart. Like, it's kind of my solo project. I write all the music. I do the guitars, the vocals, some of the bass stuff, programming, and then I'll have, like, some of my buddies come around and, like, whoever can track drums or, like, bass, make it sound a little more human, whoever's down at the time. They'll come and help me out. So this, what are we gonna call? Are we gonna call it an album cycle? I guess.
Yes.
But this, for this album, I had my buddies Joe Gillespie and Bo Askew fill in, some guys in the Sacramento Grass Valley area. Really dope guys. They just know how to jam. They all played in a band called Fana, which I was like a real big fan of. And I had known them too, because like one of the first Buried Heart shows we played was with Joe and Bo's old band with Josh Unit, actually, from Wolf and Bear,
Josh.
who I ended up recording this album with. So it just, yeah, I think on the socials I say it's Jack Whittick and Friends. So.
Well, that's very true. Also, shout outs to Joe, Joe Gillespie. Love that dude. Miss you, man.
Yeah,
but
he's a good lad.
He is a very good lad. But obviously, it's been a while. I think it's been, because I was trying to figure this out before you came on. I was like, how long has it been since the last interview? And then obviously, like, you live or were from Jersey, and so you came back to visit, and we've hung out in that aspect, but we haven't done another interview up until this point. And so I was trying to like rack my head and be like, when was the last time we interviewed? And I can't even remember. I know it was obviously during Safe Harbor, but like I'm trying to think how long ago that was. But anyway, how have you been? How's the music been going? Obviously you have a new record coming out, which we'll be delving into a little bit more, but you know, how has the Buried Heart kind of progressed up until this point?
It's been cool. Like for the last couple of years, I've been playing in these a couple different bands actually. I still play in Fake It, which I believe Christian was on your show.
That is correct.
Shout
out to Christian.
Yeah. Fake It, and then the last year, or since like last summer, I've been playing bass for this like heavy post-hardcore band called Anxious Arms. That's been really fun. And then before I joined Fake It, I was in this pop punk band called Hi Mom.
Yes.
That is super dope. Bailey's a really great songwriter. I really love everything he's coming up with, and their new shit that they're working on is going to be super fire. So I'm excited for people to hear that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So the last time we interviewed, I still lived in Chico, I think.
I believe
and
so. That's correct.
Since then, I've moved to Sacramento, and I've been here for about 3 years now. And the Buried Heart has kind of taken a backseat in terms of like shows live. But I've been kind of like building my chops, I guess you would say, like playing between Fake It and Anxious Arms, because they're like two very different sounding bands. So it's cool because like kind of like a studio project at this point, and that's going to be like focused on like making concept records that I'm just going to, release whenever I have time to record. And then, yeah, Fake It and Anxious Arms are still going strong, and Fake It is like sort of like an ambient indie band, and Anxious Arms is heavier, so I'm getting all my bases covered, I guess, in terms of like styles that I like to play. And then, yeah, all the stuff that I learned in Fake It and Anxious Arms kind of just gets like funneled into the Buried Heart. And I learn new things from all the different people I play with.
And I was going to ask, do you feel like your sound has changed since Safe Harbor? Because you had showed me some of like the like very like borderline like stuff you were working on. And so I felt like for me, it was like, okay, you're going into a little bit more of a heavier direction, obviously being with Anxious Arms. But like, how has your sound changed over the years? Do you feel like everything's going to be a little bit more like progressively heavier? Or do you feel like you're kind of taking different elements from the two bands, Anxious Arms and Fake It?
I guess I've never really thought about it as getting heavier. It's more so just like I feel like I'm becoming more comfortable with myself as a writer and like the things that I like doing, as opposed to like trying to recreate other artists that I think are cool. Even now with like the Buried Heart album that's coming out, like I finished tracking that record like 2 years ago, and I can
Oh wow.
hear like all of the stuff that I was into at the time that I was recording it. And now like the newer stuff I'm writing has been like a little bit kind of like jazzier, a little more like focused, less guitar based and more on like the piano and like orchestra stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think going forward, it's the goal is to just be as genuine as possible with each project and just make it kind of like a time capsule of what I'm listening to at the time and like what's inspiring me, kind of passing along the chain.
Yeah, what do you feel like you're listening to currently that is, or at the time when you were recording it, affected what the Barry Heart is and what the new record's gonna kind of like emulate?
Yeah, the record that's coming out a lot of the time, I was actually getting back into like a lot of older stuff,
Okay.
from like say like early 2000s Warped Tour bands, kind of
Ooh,
like
yeah.
Seosin was a big one, My Chemical Romance. I really wanted to focus on having the riffs hit a little bit harder, but having like focusing more on my chorus writing too, which is like something I learned from Alan back when we were recording Safe Harbor. He was like all about the hooks and everything. So I tried to take the advice that like he imparted onto me and like just put it in a context that he was kind of like paying tribute to that era, like having
Sure.
these really anthemic choruses and these nasty like verse riffs and stuff. Um, I just wanted to make stuff that was like fun to play
And
live, which is like such a
fun to see
basic
live
answer.
too. You want something that's
Yeah.
like the energy that matches the record. And obviously you mentioned earlier there you worked with Josh on this record. So how was kind of the transfer between like Alan and Josh? Like, do you feel like, I know that you've learned a lot from Alan and you just spoke about it, but like how was working with Josh? Was it like a completely different vibe than when working with Alan? And do you feel like he may have pulled out more of you than, in this record this time around?
It, I think about the difference between working between them a lot because they are so radically different,
Yeah.
but I've learned so much from both of them. When I went to Alan, I was still kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the Buried Heart. So he was a lot more hands-on and was kind of like, yo, like check out like all of these other bands I've worked with. Like I know how to write like good hooks and stuff. Like I'm also going to push you to get like the best vocal performances possible so it sounds
Sure.
super polished. And that was cool. I think having that sort of sound with a debut EP that also had like producer influenced hooks. Like a lot of the choruses I wrote on Safe Harbor were changed in the studio because Alan was like, these are a little too wordy or something. Try to like condense what you're saying and make the flow better instead of
Fit
trying to
better.
say like exactly what's on your mind. So that was a very valuable lesson I learned from him. And I think because of that, Safe Harbor is a lot, it's like tighter and more concise. And I feel like it's a good jumping in point for the Buried Heart.
Sure.
Whereas working with Josh, um, since I had had time to kind of like figure out what I wanted to do with the band, I knew from very early on that I wanted to make this concept record. And I told Josh about it very briefly, like at shows and stuff when we would
Mm.
run into each other. But then once we like hammered out the dates that we were gonna do for recording, he met up with me like a couple times, and he would just come over and we would just talk about like what we wanted to do for like 2 3 hours. I would show him influences off my phone and he would like listen to the sounds and like try to pick out sounds that I liked from each record. So working with Josh, it was almost like he was another member of the project. We were just like completely on the same wavelength with the end goal.
Sure.
And so in the studio, it was a lot more like experimental and we were down to like try with different sounds and stuff. And for the vocal performances, he was more about capturing not necessarily the rawness, but like the uniqueness of like my voice. Like I the type of screams that I do, it's probably not correct, like, because I'll blow my voice out after like a 3 hour session. But Josh, like the takes that he got with those vocals were just like, he was very down to just kind of let them flow naturally instead of trying to like get it to a certain sound that he had in his head. And I think having that sort of like more hands-off approach, but more like suggestive with different ideas, led to a really cool final product that I think sounds like the most accurate representation of like what the Buried Heart is and can be.
Yeah, I feel like based off of like the Bandcamp, I checked out the two songs that you had coming out, and I
Mhm.
felt like a lot of this stuff in comparison, just because we've been friends and we've been talking for a long time, and I'm just curious to see like how it was. And obviously, you sent me the record over early, so I was like kind of piecemealing it through, and I was like, I haven't listened to Safe Harbor in a little bit, so I was like, let me go back and listen to that. So I went back and listened to that, and I came back to this record, and I was like, it's so different how much stuff has changed in that year time. I feel like you're a much better writer. I think like the whole concept behind it is more interesting than Safe Harbor. As much as I loved Safe Harbor, I feel like this one is the next evolutionary step. But I also feel like there was stuff that's like a little bit more raw about it. It's not like as finished off, and a lot of people might think that that's just like, oh well, that's just stupid because like it's not 100% like what it is and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I personally love when bands take more of that raw approach when I see them live, and I'm like, I hear it on the record and I'm like, it sounds just like that. It doesn't sound like there's like so much auto tune on it or that whatever. And those aren't bad things, but
Mhm.
I do feel like the rawness of what you wrote on this news record will translate better live than I feel like Safe Harbor did. I mean, I never saw it live, so I can't say that for sure, but I do feel
No,
like
I feel it for sure.
the
And
writing
I
just
would
feels
agree with you.
the writing just feels more collective. So I guess obviously you had mentioned it's a concept record. So what are some of like, I guess like the key story features that you want to have people kind of like read into as like this as the like album progresses? Is there like a certain like person this is about, or like could you give any backstory on like the concept portion of the record?
Yeah, so I was writing it right around the time we were like 2 years into the presidency or whatever. And I feel like the time I started writing it was like when I became hyper aware of like politics and stuff. And not that it's like a strictly political record, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely influenced by a lot of, headlines and stuff that have been floating around over the last couple of years. And so the record takes place like way far in the future on Earth, where like technology has advanced to the point where people know that like the sun is going to burn out within their lifespan. So everyone's just kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate like their last couple years on Earth. You have like the extremely wealthy class who's kind of like dabbling into like, oh, maybe we should invest in space travel and try to find like another colony or whatever. But then you have like the poor people who are just kind of like stuck on Earth, who are kind of like shedding their material interest and trying to like do more things that are unifying for the human race as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so our protagonist is kind of like caught in the middle of that, and he's kind of like floating between this like existential journey of like, I never, I spent my whole life worrying about all the things that were going to happen, but now like all of this bad stuff is going to happen. So like, what do I want to hold on to in this like last year that we're together? So to kind of break that up throughout the story, there's 3 songs on the record: Sol Nascent, Sol Clemente, and Sol Moriente. And those are like the main motifs of the record.
Mm-hmm.
Sol Nascent means the sun hurts. So I put that as the first song because I wanted it to kind of like show that like, okay, things are starting to heat up. Like the sun is getting ready to,
Come.
blow up. Sol Clemente is the second sun song. And that's like a turning point on the record where this like huge solar flare happens that like the scientists have been predicting would happen soon, and then once that happens, there's only like 1 year left until the Earth blows up, or the sun blows up. Sorry, and it eradicates all life on Earth. And then then you have Sol Moriente at the end of the record, which means the sun dies, and that's just kind of like a moment where the character is like witnessing the end of the world. But yeah, so that's like the main concept like within the record, but on like a metaphorical level, it's also it's kind of symbolic of like my relationship with being a DIY musician and trying to like reach this goal of like being, sustainable with just a music career. And so I like the idea of like the sun burning out, because I view like the music career as like a sun almost, like you get this nourishment from, being exposed to it, but then, the closer you get to it, the more you see under the curtain, behind the mask or whatever, the more you kind of get burned by it, and you see kind of how fucked up everything is. So yeah, it's just, the whole album, I guess, is just kind of like a big metaphor for like the things I was going through and like what was going on with the world in this time where I was like just starting to like tour and like become the artist that I wanted to be, I guess.
No, I definitely feel that, and I also feel like the comparison of like Ida Mighty, like they do the frame trilogy. I feel like in terms of storyline, it kind of follows obviously not the same arc, but I feel like for myself, as being such a big Ida Mighty fan, that was something that I drew out of it, was like, obviously musically it may not be a musical influence, but I felt like just storyline and just how Brent kind of writes, it was kind of in that same vein. And I've always appreciated that series, so I felt like with this, I was like, this sounds very cool. It's this like storyline, this thematic sort of thing, and I'm curious what other people are gonna think about it when the record, finally comes out and people are able to kind of listen to the whole storyline as a progression, not just like, okay, well, we have like 2 songs out now, and then you're gonna have to wait, and the rest of it comes out later. But it just feels like there's a collectiveness to it. As much as you were saying, like, oh, this is going to be more natural, like, there isn't going to be as much, like, I guess, production to it, per se. I do feel like it fits in that sort of vein of, like, what you're already doing, where it's, like, you have this really large storyline and you're trying to, like, carry it on in that sort of way. And it has a unique way of listening to it. Like I said, I only got about halfway through it, but it was very interesting, and like I said, I hope people are excited to check it out. But what was one song that you took a lot of time kind of like manipulating, and it from like maybe like the first stages of like pre-pro to like the end, like the final master, like which was the song that changed the most, and then which one was one of your favorites that you had fun writing and like working around with?
Okay, so for the first one, the song that changed the most, it's probably the last song, Sol Moriente, because that was like, when we started recording the record, that was really the only song that I didn't have done yet.
Oh, wow.
I had only written like the first minute of it, and I was like, okay, I know for sure that I want like the big riff that comes in when the song kicks off to be like a reprise of the main motif melody, but I didn't have anything planned for after that. And then so I was kind of like programming some different stuff out, like when I would get home from the days that I'd be recording with Josh, and then it finally just became this thing that was kind of like a recap, kind of like the first song. It like ended up becoming kind of like a recap of the album and like some of the different melodies that show up throughout. We did a lot of cool things on that song too. Like my girlfriend Crystal played violin on that song. So that was cool. That was like, I'm glad that we got like some real string instruments on the album instead of like all program stuff, because it does really add that nice layer to it. And then her and I also did these kind of like choir vocals on the like towards the end of that song also, which was really cool. I think Josh said the project ended up being more than like 150 like tracks or something for like all the different instruments and vocals and stuff. But I'm super stoked with how that turned out, and I've always liked the idea of like the last song on a record being an instrumental to kind of like close everything out.
Yeah, I do. I'm really excited to listen to that, and also obviously like I remember last time when we interviewed you, were like Coheed's a big influence too, and I feel like
Yep.
they have that sort of orchestral way about doing big like motifs and stuff like that. So I felt like so far, I'm not trying to like conceptualize your band to like certain bands, but I do feel like I the Mighty, especially like older material, maybe not so much as
Yeah.
newer material. And then obviously Coheed, I feel like those two in my head when I was listening to it, I
Yeah.
was like, those were the first two bands that like came to mind, and I was like, that's
That's dope.
awesome because those are my
Yeah, I
like
love both
I
those
love
bands.
Coheed and I love I the Mighty, obviously.
I know
So
Brent's a big Coheed fan too. That
so
was actually
it's
how I got into that band. I saw like a thumbnail for one of their music videos, and I was like, "Does this dude have a keyword tattoo? That's pretty sick." And
eh,
then I listened to it, and I was like, "Dude, yeah, this is like." I feel like I the Mighty is like one of the only like newer post-hardcore bands that's kind of like carrying the torch of what Coheed was doing, but kind of like modernizing it without making it like too like head ass prog. There's a
yeah.
lot of head ass prog out there, but
There is
I don't know who's
100%.
doing it good.
But that's awesome. I know, like I said, I'm excited for a lot of you to listen to it. I know I keep like referencing that, but I do feel like it is a record that is gonna fly under a lot of people's radars, and I hope that hopefully people check this out because, I co-sign Jack. I've always been a fan of what Jack does, and obviously we're good friends, so that obviously helps out with how much I give a shit about his music. But generally, I feel like if I didn't know him and I just found out about his shit on like Bandcamp, I would be like, yeah, I gotta support this dude because he's doing something different.
That that's
Uh,
kind of I'm like really grateful for the Buried Hearts like fan base because it's really just like all of my like close homies pretty much. Like since this is such like a small studio project for me, like I pretty much know everybody who listens to the music like pretty well through like social media and stuff. So
yeah,
it's cool that like I can just drop these albums and people like I know a certain amount of people will pick it, be like, oh yeah, that's cool.
yeah. I mean, and also like I feel like with each record, I feel like it becomes a little bit better. Like you were saying, just from the jump from Safe Harbor to this now, I'm excited to see what people think and see how like they react to it. And I know some people already have it already, but I'm not gonna disclose the names. But I know people have it, and so I'm curious to see what other people have thoughts on it. But obviously, Jack, I have to keep stuff more current. So who have you been jamming to recently? What's on your Spotify? What have you been listening to
Oh
lately?
man, I've been listening to a lot of stuff. I've been getting back into like heavier music again. Like I go through these phases where like I'll binge on heavy music for like 2 months and then I just like won't listen to anything heavy for like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I know that.
But lately, that new Silent Planet, the Redux album
Yeah,
of Night God Slept, that's been dope. Sleep Token, I've been banging for a while. Sleep Token's super good.
they're so hella good.
My homie's band Farewell Familiar, their drummer Zach actually like plays with Fake It and Anxious Arms too, but they just put out an EP called I'm gonna fuck up the name. It's like I don't know, dude, but you guys gotta listen to it. It's kind of like title fighty,
Okay.
really like strong choruses. Their singer Tony has got like a hella good voice too. I'm like a big fan of his voice because they're kind of like not pop punk, but kind of like title fight right before they went onto Hype Review.
Okay,
That
I
sort
feel
of
that.
kind of like,
Okay.
but yeah, Tony's voice is super good. I'm gonna look up this album name again. It's
And
like
then
Lonely Night. Here it is, Lonely Nights and Sunny Days by
okay.
Farewell Familiar. Bump that shit. I think you would like it, especially Brandon. Like, I feel like it'd be something you're into.
I'm gonna have to go give it a
Um,
listen.
Yeah, and then other than that, just the usual video game orchestral soundtracks. That Sweet Distant Worlds, Final Fantasy. Just like I've been trying to focus a lot more for like the new Buried Heart stuff that I'm writing on, like instead of like programming orchestral parts just to kind of like fill a space in the song, like actually program the parts like how they would be played in a full orchestra setting, which sounds like something that would be kind of obvious, but I'm kind of an idiot and I need to fuck around with stuff for a while before I know what I'm doing. Um, but yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Just like lots of piano and string stuff. So there'll probably be a lot more of that on the next record.
And I also feel like I've seen some posts of you going to like these like the video game like orchestral sort of like shows and stuff. So I feel like that's always been a strong part about like your music and why I enjoy it is because obviously I'm a big video game fan too. So I
Yeah.
felt like that's very appropriate, and I'm excited to hear more about like the newer stuff that's going to be coming out. I will also give the mega cosign to Sleep Token. If you haven't checked them out, go do it because they're fantastic. Definitely a slept on band of last year. And then
Oh,
there's this other band you tagged me in, and I can't remember what their name is. Kenny's in it, and I forget what the band
oh,
name is.
Narco debut.
Narco debut. That's what it was. I knew I like
Yeah,
as soon
dude.
as you said it, I was like, that's it. I couldn't remember it,
Yeah,
but
everybody's got to check that band out. I think they're on hiatus right now, which bums me out. I think that's what Kenny said last time I talked to him. But yeah, their most recent record was super good.
yeah,
It sounds, I don't want to be like reductive, but it sounds like Coheed and Circa, but like fused in the best way possible. They got hella good riffs, really good atmosphere in their songs too. Like, that's another type of band that I really like where it's got the kind of like progressive like post rock taste, but it's
yeah,
not ever like boring or like self indulgent. It's still like very tight. Every new part that shows up in a song is like cooler than the last part.
yeah.
And I really appreciate bands that can do that.
I also feel like a band that came to mind when I was listening to him was like Old Tides of Man with Tillian in it. Like that
Yeah.
was something I felt like immediately. I was like, this is like if Tides of Man was still like continuing under a different name and was doing like some similar stuff. I was I was all about that for a while, so I felt like I wanted to give Narco debut. Please come back. First of all,
Yeah. Shout out to
secondly,
Kenny, man.
shouts to Kenny. Come on, I know you're not. The band is on hiatus, but if you ever want to come back, please hit your boy up. I'd love to have you guys on.
He's doing something else now, I think. He's been uploading pictures of him like playing bass in a studio, so
Kenny,
I'm
my
gonna hit
dude,
him up after this
you're gonna
interview,
have
see
to
what's up.
message me, my dude. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Next thing, Jack. Again, another fun question to switch them up. If you were to compile a musical supergroup, who would be in your band?
Dude, this question gets asked in like so many Facebook groups I'm in, like probably once a month, and every month I come up with like a different one that's cool. But then when I try to think about it on the spot,
You can't.
I'm just like, oh, dude, I don't know. But I want Andrew Wells from Idola on
Ah,
vocals.
shout outs to
Shout out to
Andrew.
my
My
boy.
love.
He's I actually took vocal lessons from him for a
He
while
is
after
hella
Safe Harbor.
he is hella underrated as a vocalist. I feel like he does not get the love he deserves because he is whew, buttery. Love it. Anyway,
Dude,
continue.
the new Idola stuff that's coming out is fucking chef's kiss, brother.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
I'm
listen. I'm gonna have
excited.
to message Andrew after this.
I think they got something coming out next week. They said something was happening sometime this month.
Well, I mean,
I've
with all
been
that like unfortunate coronavirus shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
The landscape of the music industry has changed. But anyway, Andrew, love you, dude.
Okay.
Miss you, man. But
All right, I want Andrew on vocals. I want motherfucking Joe Gillespie on bass.
ooh, Joe,
That Joe,
chef's
okay,
kiss.
there's this song on the new Buried Heart record called The Feeling. And when everybody hears that song, I want you to listen to the bass and just listen to how Joe just like completely just like decimated that entire
Shreds.
track, dude. Every time I hear the bass on that song, I'm just flabbergasted. Dude. The thing with Joe too is he's such like a crazy musician that like when he came in to record, he didn't really like have parts like concretely written. He's like, oh yeah, I've got a couple ideas for like songs. Let me, let's just like try a couple different things. And then we got to the feeling, and he did that in like one or two takes, I think. And he's like, do you like how that sounds? Is that all right?
And
I
you're
was like, boy, that's a thick ass boy.
That's awesome.
But
Shouts to Joe.
Yeah, Joe's the man.
So you got Joe, we got Andrew.
Right. Joe, Andrew. Ooh, who do I want on guitar? Oh God. There's this new dude, Mateus Azado.
Oh, yes,
Mateus?
Mateus. Oh, I know. Mateus.
Dude. Yeah, okay, so right now I'm turning this band into like a John Mayer kind of like blues jam with like good bass and then Andrew singing.
Ooh.
So I think on drums.
Okay, so who we got on the drums?
I want someone with. We're gonna put Josh Eppert from Coheed on drums for that sweet pocket.
He's got the pocket.
Him and Joe are just gonna go to town on the rhythm section. And Mateus is gonna do his thing, and then Andrew's just gonna croon.
Oof.
And then yeah, dude, I gotta figure out how to make this happen now, man.
Yeah, now it's on the internet. So we're just gonna have to tweet at Idola, Mateus Asado. Joe, we already know Joe, so I feel like he would be in on it. And the Coheed co-sign, that's gonna be the big one. So Coheed, I know you're gonna be watching this shit. So let's make it happen. Let's go. Let's get it. 2021, baby. Next question, Jack. My personal favorite that I've been loving asking in the sort of second interviews, but if there was an album that you wish that you wrote, what album would it be?
Oh, dude. I think recently probably the new Sleep Token record.
Woo!
Like
right.
I heard that record and I heard like the first song I heard was track 1.
Yeah.
Whatever. The Night Does Not Belong to God.
Yeah.
And I heard that song and I was pissed because like I can't believe I didn't fucking write this shit first, because I felt like listening to that Token album, I was like, this is what I kind of like wanted the Buried Heart to like morph into. And I feel like if you listen to the new Buried Heart record that's coming out, you can it sounds like kind of like a baby version.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I really love the way that band is blending like the metal with the orchestral stuff. Like Bloodsport, dude.
Fucking killer. I feel like they're like kind of like a little bit of R&B, a little bit of soul. They're like kind of a mix of different things, because like I could show somebody like Gods and that thing would be smacking you up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I could show you like Levitate, and it's like the total opposite, where it's like nice piano, the singing's like tight. Like it's so weird, and like I totally agree with you. It's one album that's just like so polarizing, and it's one that I still have to pick up for the vinyl collection. But it's like it's wild. Like it's such a wild record from start to finish, and I know we've been gassing them up, but honestly, I feel like they deserve all the gas they can get, because my God, they're fucking ripping it. They're a band that I'm excited to see. Hopefully, they come back in 2020. Who knows with this whole shit with the virus? But I'd love to see them come back to the States again and do it, because I feel like an idiot for not seeing them on that Issues tour. But
dude, me too. I had a show that night. I was somewhere. I was like, God, I wanted to see this so bad, because I love that new Issues record too. I actually wanted to shout that out for stuff I've been listening to.
Hell yeah. Well, I found out that Sky is not on their live thing anymore. Like he's not, like they haven't officially announced that he's not in the band, because I don't feel like he'll ever be out, but like he's not. He'll probably only be doing like studio stuff. Yeah, I found it. Somebody told me this at a show, so I don't know whether or not it's true or not. I'm not trying to spread false information, but I'm pretty sure he was like, yeah, he's got like 2 kids, and so like a family.
What?
So like he hasn't been like touring, and so I think they said that his last tour was that Issues tour, and I was like, fuck, I
Damn.
should have went to it. So I don't know if they're gonna program bass or not now, but that's gonna be very upsetting if
To
there's
the
only like three.
periphery thing.
Just like
Yeah.
they got like one guitar player, the drummer, and it's Tyler, and that's it. So
Mhm.
who knows? Whatever. But the last thing, Jack, as you know, tell the people about the Buried Heart, where they can find you at, and anything coming up in the next couple months.
Yeah, so for the Buried Heart, you can follow us on Instagram at the Buried Heart, Twitter at Buried Heart Band, and then if you search the Buried Heart on Facebook, we're there. Instagram's probably the place I'm most active. I also like if you want to follow my personal Instagram too, it's at the Buried Jack, and I upload like guitar videos and composition stuff there all the time. But I'm trying to be more active with that stuff on the actual band page because that's probably a smarter business decision to like get everybody just to show. Because I am always like writing riffs and like melodies and stuff, and it like takes me a long time to like form them into songs. So I like to kind of like put them on my social media to see if like people remember them at all when like the records come out, because I used to do that stuff with like Periphery. I remember that like Misha would like upload stuff to SoundCloud and then you'd hear it on like a Periphery record like 4 years later.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool to like follow that. So I'm always like very open about like sharing stuff early, even though everyone in the industry is like, no, you shouldn't do that. It's like, dude, why the fuck not? Show people that you're actually working instead of just like talking about shit all the
No
time,
gatekeeping.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm at this point, the Buried Heart is just going to be a completely independent thing for me. I'll probably do shows eventually, but I'm really like focusing on trying to find like a really solid live lineup, and also in search for like string players and like maybe some horn players or something. I would really, honestly, I'm just going to say this on this to manifest it into reality. Hopefully somebody will watch it and the prayers will be answered. But I would love to do a single Buried Heart show where we play this entire new record in full with like a string section or like some like small orchestra setting. That is like a goal that I've been actively working towards for like the last year. So hopefully we can make that happen once the record is out and people can actually hear it instead of me just like talking about it like every local band idiot.
Well, I mean, you're no local band. Well, first of all, we're not local anyway because we're on two opposite sides of the country. But as I mentioned before, Jack has been on the channel one time before this, and we've met up in person, which is honestly a rarity for me because sometimes I don't. Some of the bands that I get to interview like online, I don't get to meet. So just happy coincidence that Jack's family lives in New Jersey, so it works out. But go check out Jack's stuff because honestly, this dude works fucking hard, and I love seeing him, really do his thing. So I'm excited for everybody to check out the new record. It's awesome so far, and I feel like the rest of it is only gonna get better. So go give it a listen when it comes out. I don't know if you have a date for it yet, Jack, but
yeah, March 27th. So it's coming out like next Friday.
There we go. It's coming out very soon. This will be out by then, so go check it out when it comes out. And if you enjoyed this interview, make sure to share it, like it, subscribe. It goes a long way. And go tweet at Coheed and Idola and Matthew Sato and all these guys because you gotta make that shit happen. That's gonna happen. This is gonna get formulated this year. It's gonna be hot. It's that hot.
Yeah.
It's that hot. It's fresh out the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? So make sure to get that shit happening. And of course, thanks to Jack, major homie of the channel, and best of luck on the release. And excited to get a review out of that new when it's out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again.